Right, guys. Just want to first off, let me tell you, I forgot. It's Saturday. My bad. Uh, Last video when I said it was Wednesday, it was really Thursday, and they're all kind of blending into one lately. It's just been absolutely uh, catastrophe, busy at work and everything else. But anyhow, good deal. It's Saturday. I want to talk to you guys. I pulled the tarp off of the white because the white was just blowing way too fast. I want you guys to see this. I mean, this stuff is just bubbling like crazy. And I took this tarp off yesterday, I believe. And I mean, this yeast is just vigorous. It's crazy. And I used three different types of yeast. Each one was specific for the juice wine that we were making. So that's the Riesling, obviously, Sauv Blanc, Chardonnay. So Chardonnay D47, very, very preferred. The other two, I believe I went with QA23. I'd have to check my notes, but I'm almost positive I went with QA23 on both the Riesling and the Sauv Blanc. But, I mean, check this out. This is just crazy. This is the difference between white grape wine and white juice, the stuff that you get in these buckets from California. Look at this. This is just blowing, absolutely blowing yeast off the bottom. It's that vigorous. And for most of you, you're like, yeah, well, whatever, man. It's, fermentation. It's all good. Here's the difference. I want you to look. It is 52 degrees in this garage. 52 degrees, right? I took the tarp off of this because it was so hot, and a hot white fermentation takes away from the aroma in the wine. But I mean, this stuff is just like, it's firing up like crazy right now. I can't even tell you. I am so impressed with the way this is cooking. So, again, we live in Chicago. For you guys who are in other parts of the country where you actually have good grapes and you could buy grapes and make wine, California, even parts of Arizona, New York, some places up in the Midwest like Michigan or Ohio or wherever, Canada. If you make wine from grapes, you're going to see the difference. Juice buckets are not bad. Do not get me wrong. They're just not going to be as flavorful. You're not going to get as strong of a fermentation. You're not going to get all those things that you're looking for in a $20 to $30 bottle of wine. You get the right grapes from the right part of the country, you can make easily a $20 to $50 bottle of wine. Central Valley grapes, that's the stuff that, these guys get down on the south side. They get it early, and by like the third, fourth week of September, they're done. And unfortunately, all that stuff comes from Central Valley, California, which isn't bad, but I mean, that's basically, you're making a $2 chuck. So, people complain, you guys bring in your grapes so late. The longer the fruit hangs, the more flavor you're going to get. Hot days, cold nights retain acid and make a better wine. Suisun Valley, which is where we're getting our grapes from lately, has been really a good producing area for us. I'm really happy with the grapes that we're getting. And remember, these were all whites that we made from grapes. So, and this is the first year that we've actually brought grapes in. Now, we've made grape wine before. We've driven down to southern Illinois and bought grapes and made grape wine that way. We've also gotten white wine from Michigan and made Vidal Blanc and a few other varietals. And it's not bad. It's the Southern Illinois, I'll tell you what, it was actually pretty decent wine. The Vidal Blanc from Michigan, we typically would use it as a blender with the California juice because it was so acidic that it wasn't really meant to be drank on its own. It wasn't bad, but it just wasn't great. So, long story short, this year we decided to roll the dice. And some years the grapes come out good, and some years the grapes come out pretty rough. You know, it just depends on the year. This year, they weren't terrible. They weren't great. I mean, look, it could look rough aesthetically, and it could still make an absolutely monster wine. This year, I will say, they didn't look the best. And you guys saw in the earlier videos how challenged the acid was on a couple of these varietals. But I'll tell you, it's still going to make a good wine. It's still going to be very drinkable. It's going to be delicious. So, anyhow, Saturday afternoon, here we are watching this white blow like crazy. And at 50 degrees, I'm happy. I feel really good about this. This is fermenting very nicely for 50 degrees. I am going to add some Fermaid-O, which I've just mixed up a second ago. Fermaid-O, it's right here. Fermaid-O is, here, let me actually read the package. I'm going to read it to you verbatim. Contains organic sources of nitrogen, not DAP, along with nutrients for a healthy fermentation with less heat spikes, better yeast health, equals better flavor. Use 1.5 grams per gallon, rehydrate in distilled water, and add at 1/3 sugar depletion. So, you know, when you're making a big red wine, big white wine, it's got a lot of sugar in it. Yeast will die off, and that's why we don't use wild yeast, because wild yeast will die off and you're not going to get it to ferment all the way to dry. So I have no doubt that we're going to ferment to dry, but again, a little insurance, adding some of this Fermaid-O to the fermentation is really going to help us get it to push all the way to dry. Remember, as yeast ferments, it starts off extremely vigorous, and then slowly, as the alcohol content gets higher and higher, the yeast continue to slow down. So it's really the end of the fermentation that's concerning. It's not the beginning of the fermentation. Fermentation is going to occur if that yeast is happy and healthy. It's going to ferment all the way to dry without any issues. So a little insurance, a package of Fermaid-O is a couple bucks. It's just going to help the yeast stay strong all the way through to the point where they're dry, and should get us a good dry wine. Doesn't affect the flavor, nothing to do with the flavor. All we're doing here is we're just gonna put a little insurance in the containers, punch them down again, and shouldn't have any issues with the fermentation as long as the temperatures stay pretty steady and we keep the heat on underneath the tarp. We should get to dry here in the next couple weeks. So, all right, guys, I'm gonna go ahead and shut this white part down. I'm gonna get the tarps off the red, add some Fermaid-O to both white and red, and I will be back.